So there's a couple different reasons why I'm really for saving People's Park, but you basically have to read the news very carefully all the time because something new pops up as a reason to try to knock down People's Park.
The reason why you want to be at UC Berkeley instead of UCLA is because of what we look like online, what we look like with the revolutionary action that we have taken. That's why you want to wear Berkeley on your chest. That's why you want to wear Berkeley on your backpack. But I'm going to tell you right now, student housing being developed on People's Park is a big contradiction, because the reason that you respect Berkeley, the reason why UC Berkeley is more of a respectable university is because of what the students have accomplished. UC Berkeley students ended the war in Vietnam. UC Berkeley, the hippies of Berkeley and the Black Panthers of Oakland met at UC Berkeley on Telegraph, and they marched down Telegraph and faced police brutality together. You guys are the students that are getting this park eliminated.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is 54 years of resistance. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you. Hold on. The purpose of this documentary is to document history, not to push an agenda. Alico Films. The student housing crisis.
Yeah, I am aware of the student housing crisis, and I hear about my upperclassmen where they have to pay like multiple thousands of dollars for it, and it is a really big issue. But I don't believe it justifies destroying the park, right? Because right here, it's history, and it has a big recreational value to the school with the freedom of speech movement, and it's such a really beautiful place that I don't think that we should destroy this most really historical site.
Free speech, free speech. Leave this park alone, we got free speech. Free speech, free speech. Keep People's Park alive, we need freedom of speech. Free speech, free speech. Leave People's Park alone, cause I need free speech. Free speech, free speech. I need freedom of speech. I need freedom of speech.
I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, Lord, set on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind set on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Today's honored guest has long been an advocate of nonviolence and recognized as the leading figure of the civil rights movement in the United States. He was the youngest man to win the Nobel Peace Prize, winning it at the age of 35. At the present time, in addition to his civil rights activities, he's been one of the leading critics of President Johnson's war policy. It's with great pleasure that I introduce to you the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King, Jr.
thank you very kindly for your heartwarming applause. Someone has said that when an audience applauds you before you speak, that represents faith. When they applaud in the middle of your speech, that represents hope. And when they applaud at the end, that represents love. So you have demonstrated great faith today, and I certainly want to appreciate your very heartwarming applause. I need not pause to say how very delighted I am to have the privilege of coming to this great institution of learning and the privilege of discussing with you some of the vital issues of our day. No one can overlook the fact that the University of California is one of the truly great universities of our world. I think one of the great needs in our world today, and certainly in our nation, is for the revolution of values. And I, for one, appreciate the fact that you here at Berkeley have constantly reminded all of us in our whole nation that we must review our values. I would also like to express my deep personal appreciation to you as a civil rights leader for the support that you as a university and a concerned student body have given to the civil rights struggle, as we have labored tirelessly and unrelentingly to achieve first-class citizenship. We have had the support of persons of goodwill over our nation, and I would certainly say that some of the strongest support that we have received came from this great campus, this university with students who have a great concern. And I want to thank you because you, in a real sense, have been the conscience of the academic community in our nation. And I can only say, keep up the good work and keep up this great concern.
So originally, when I saw on the news, Isabella had said, we need people, we need bodies. I was like a day late. I seen it in the news. I was like, what? So I started coming down here every day and interviewing, and it wasn't long before I ran into her and got to interview her. So this next segment is the Isabella interview. So, who are you and why do you have special interest here? Why do you feel like you've gone above and beyond so far? You can talk about going above and beyond, but I really want to know why. I'll talk about why you go above and beyond, but I mean, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm Bella. I'm a second year here at Berkeley. I'm also like a fourth generation Berkeley student. So my family's been here, you know. And because of that, I've been held connected to the park on all sides of my family, you know. Like this is a place that they grew up coming to. My grandma, when she first came out from New York, this was the first place that she came, you know. And talking to her and hearing her experience at the park was like, she was like, this is one of the places that I felt most loved by people I've never even met in my life, you know. She was sitting there around a campfire and they're feeding her, taking care of her for like 2 weeks. And, you know, for me, that's like, that just shows that there's so much love here. And that's really like why I was so interested in it, is because I know that every single person here has love for each other, you know, regardless of the disputes, regardless of what happens. It's like, we're here because we love nature, we love this planet, and we love each other. So, yeah.
What do you have to say to people who see on the Citizen app that a lot of crime happens here and they think that they should just shut it down because stuff happens here?
Yeah, I think that's propaganda. I actually did a whole ethnographic project for my first semester here on the Warn Me system, which is what the UCPD uses to push out propaganda, basically saying that there's aggravated assaults at People's Park, and ultimately there's violence everywhere. There's probably hella violence going on at those frat parties, but we ain't hearing nothing about it, right? And that ultimately, like, they're very intentional about how they use that system, and it does feed out a narrative that there's violence here. So, yeah.
What do you have to say about people in the Bay Area who believe that activism is important? What do you know, if you could speak to them, if they're all going to see this video, what do you message to them?
Okay, this is my message: is make yourself uncomfortable, be uncomfortable, grow. See, like, we got people over here. Bryce is trying to get them over there. They just want to look, but come out, you know. Be uncomfortable. Let yourself be uncomfortable, because if you're not uncomfortable, you're not growing. So that's what I say. And also, don't just talk. Be about it. You know, take action, because ultimately we can sit here and talk all we want, but nothing's gonna happen. Like, nothing that you manifest is gonna happen without action. So take action. Be uncomfortable, and be open to new experiences, because everything's a new experience.
Yeah. You know, some people in power, they say, "Why are you here?" Like, for example, if somebody at UC Berkeley, they're like, "Well, if you disagree, why are you here?" What entitlement do you feel to be at the school and disagree with what the dean is doing, you know?
I mean, that's my right, you know, like, freedom of speech, that's my right, but also, like, for me, like, I've always known who I am, to a certain extent, you know, we're always learning who we are every single day, but, like, I've always known I want to be a revolutionary, you know, to and through, and ultimately, like, this is a place where revolution has been, and I'm not going to just sit here and let that get taken away from me and from my people and from everyone, because ultimately, like, we're all here, we're all connected, regardless of race, regardless of our age, whatever. It's like, we're all here, and we all, you look around, you see so many fucking people here. Sorry for cursing, but, like, you see so many different types of people here, and it's important to recognize that, like we can be connected, and we can continue to show people love, but also, like, right now it's like, that happens everywhere, you know, that doesn't just happen here, so.
Yeah, and nobody's getting hurt. It's all good. All he needs to do is walk away.
In 2009, when they killed Oscar Grant, we had to take the freeway, we had to take a stand. We had to let the world know, now we ain't gonna take it. They killed a handcuffed man, and we gon' make him famous. You want him to be nameless, but we remember names. Rest in peace to Oscar Grant, we remember names. When they kill one of yours, we gon' do the same. And that's my commitment.
Today, I would like to talk to you guys about what happened at the August 3rd riots. So basically, they were here. This was all fenced off, and they came in to pretty much tear everything down. And the second the crowd got large enough and found a hole in the fence, they pretty much broke back in and stopped the build. The results of that were that this whole project went to court, and UC Berkeley actually lost in court against the National Landmark Historical Advocacy Group of Berkeley. And I actually have an interview. Go ahead and start. Tell them who you are.
My name is Harvey Smith. I'm with People's Park Historic District Advocacy Group. And we're here today on the Cal campus. We're going to go up to Pauley Ballroom in a little bit. University is sponsoring sort of a dog and pony show. They're going to have on the podium all the people that support destroying People's Park. And our position is we absolutely need more student housing here in Berkeley. The university has known that for over 50 years, but now they have a dire crisis on their hands, as they phrase it. But they also have alternative locations to build, and that's what we want to see happen. We want to see the university use those alternative locations to build student housing and supportive housing. And it seems like a no-brainer. People's Park was recently put on the National Register of Historic Places. And the chancellor of the university seems to want to ignore that fact. She did a message to the campus at the beginning of the school year, no mention of that fact. So this really goes beyond Berkeley, it goes beyond California. People's Park is a national historic site and should be preserved. So that's one side of the argument to save it. The other side is the environmental value of the park. Any urban planner anywhere probably on the planet would say that in dense urban neighborhoods you need more open space, not less. So here they plan to remove the the only open space in a very crowded portion of the city of Berkeley. So for many reasons, People's Park needs to be preserved, and the university needs to go to an alternative site to build their housing.
Right. Can you talk about October 10th, is it, the court date?
Well, there's going to be a court date coming up soon, and we're challenging the university under the California Environmental Quality Act. We have a couple of main issues. One is that they don't have to enroll to the level that they're enrolling. They should catch up with housing before they add more people to Berkeley. It just makes sense. The University of California at Santa Barbara is also being sued by the County of Santa Barbara and the City of Goleta on the same issue. Catch up with housing and then bring in more students. So it only makes sense. The other part of our argument is the fact that they do have these alternatives I spoke about. They have proposed sites for building that will total 13,566 beds. Their stated goal, the chancellor and the PR people at Cal have said their goal is 8,000. So that's over a $5,000 differential, 5,000 bed differential. And they can easily forget People's Park and move on to another site, and it wouldn't be an issue. Right. So for those key reasons, we're challenging them. It was in the Superior Court. Now it's going to the Appellate Court, and we've submitted our opening arguments. The university will respond. That will respond again, and then the judge will look at it. And that'll happen sometime probably in October, could be November.
Okay. What do you think the Berkeley students' stake in the game is on this? If they look at you and say this doesn't affect me or this is not my business, is that a correct statement for a UC Berkeley student to make?
Well, I wouldn't say it's a correct statement, but there's always been that student. I mean, during the civil rights movement, during the free speech movement, during the anti-war movement, there were always students that, were really not in the game of opposing those things. So, or being involved in activism. So, but the university will claim the students are in favor of building on People's Park. They did a survey. That survey was heavily criticized by the Daily Cal. And I have to take my hat off to the Daily Cal because they have done an excellent job of investigative reporting, and they also have done a number of editorials in support of preserving People's Park.
So we're talking about an actual historical landmark. I think there was debate about whether it was just a landmark, a California landmark, or a national landmark. This is official now.
Yeah, the history is it's been a Berkeley landmark since the 1980s. And so our group, People's Park Historic District Advocacy Group, worked for over a couple of years to put together an application to the National Park Service. That has to go through the State Office of Historic Preservation. It was unanimously approved at that level and then sent off to Washington, where they in turn approved it. So it is on the National Register of Historic Places. It's a National Historic Site.
So would it be fair to say that the UC Berkeley, that UC Berkeley owning this is equivalent to UC Berkeley inheriting or owning a museum? Just because they own it doesn't mean they get to knock it down.
Yeah, you could say that. Every I think entity, every city, every county, every state values its historic monuments, and its historic buildings. So every city, every state, every county, they value their historic legacy. And there are laws and regulations, but a lot of times private entities and developers, and certainly institutions like university, like the University of California, they have some leeway. So they can either respect that historic building or space or not. We just urge the university, it's a public institution, it should have a public mission, it should honor the historic legacy of People's Park.
Especially since it's not a private school. It's not like they're What's a private college? I don't know. It's Harvard.
Stanford.
Yeah, Stanford's a private college. If this was Stanford, maybe they'd do that. But being that this is a UC.
Well, surprisingly, Stanford actually does a little bit better job with some of its historic preservation than UC Berkeley does.
Wow.
Yeah.
So even more so, is this kind of like a sham, a joke?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, there's no need to do it. I think it comes down to either an obsession of the chancellor or a sort of a long political battle that goes back to the days of Ronald Reagan when he was governor and then later president. So, you know, we faced a tremendous hit on everything that's public since the days of Ronald Reagan.
Right.
And I think that a place like Berkeley should be the first to stand up and say no to that legacy. You know, we want to see an expansion of the public sector. It's kind of shocking for me, who was a student at UC Berkeley back in the 60s, when I talk to students today. Because when I was a student, it was a truly public education. There was zero tuition. Now students are paying something like over $14,000 a year, plus really expensive housing costs. We're saddled with student debt. And you know, we're going to have a hard time finding the public in public education pretty soon.
Right. Okay, in closing, can you say something about the free speech movement and Mario Savio?
Sure. So, the free speech movement was obviously a high point here on the Cal campus and all over the country. And what happened was that there was a lead up to the free speech movement. It didn't come from nowhere. Most of the major people involved in the free speech movement had been involved in the civil rights movement. So when they went to the South and they did organizing there and voter registration, they came back to Berkeley and they couldn't speak. They didn't have a public forum. And so they took that very seriously. And so they stood up and fought for free speech. That's another good example of the university being very wrong about something that the students valued and stood up for. It's the same thing with People's Park now. So that free speech movement drew in a lot of people, a lot of focus from people obviously all over the state, all over the country, and it sparked movements in other parts of the country. And it was in that milieu of the civil rights movement, activism, and then the activism against the war in Vietnam. So it was important for people to speak out, just as it's important today for people to speak out about issues that we face.
Right. And in closing, can you give Mario Savio so just a brief overview, because a lot of people aren't knowing about him. So
yeah, Mario Savio was a student that did go to the South, did register voters there, was inspired by that, came back to Berkeley, and he was one of many involved in the free speech movement. But something clicked with Mario, and he became an incredible orator, and was a person that kind of, the free speech movement kind of formed in a sense around him because of these powerful speeches that he made. Now, of course, he wasn't the only one. He's the one that's most symbolic of the free speech movement, but there were a lot of other people that were very much involved in the free speech movement and, continued on to do all kinds of activism later in life.
definitely. And then I saw you say something about people giving to your guys' lawyer fund or something like that. How do people give?
Okay. So our organization is trying to support the legal effort. And so we have a website. You can just Google People's Park Historic District Advocacy Group or just People's Park Historic District. It'll come up. And then we have a page there, Donate Now. And you click on that button and you can contribute to the legal effort. And we really need support at this point. University has endless funds to spend on this. They have banks of lawyers and PR people. And we're just people in the community that are trying to do the best we can. So if you have the ability to support us, even small amounts, of course larger amounts, please do.
Okay, great. Thank you. And how does someone get in contact with you? What's your email?
Yeah, I'll give you an email. I'll give you a card.
Okay, cool.
What's your